Hi, this is George Harris, and you're listening to Cigar City Radio.
Cigar City Radio is sponsored by No Clubs and StateMedia.com. Find out about upcoming concerts in Tampa Bay by visiting StateMedia.com and tagging No Clubs on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Use the hashtag #WeAreConcerts.
I had the pleasure of attending a No Clubs show just last week as the Descendants came to the Bay Area for the first time in 20-something years. They were joined by Radkey, who instantly became one of my favorite bands live. Absolutely incredible show from all the bands that performed. And it was quite the crowd. There were a lot of aging punks there who are still keeping it punk rock and keeping the spirit alive. The pit was nuts. So what else does No Clubs have for you this month? Well, they've got Black Angels and Black Lips. That's happening Wednesday, April 18th at State Theater. Saturday, April 21st, they've got Nightwish doing their Decades North America tour. That's at Janus Live, Saturday, April 21st. And Friday, April 27th, a hardcore show with Memphis May Fire, Fire from the Gods, Up From Here, and Safer Waters. That's happening at the State Theater. A little bit of an earlier start, 6:30 doors. So be there for that, Friday, April 27th. Don't go see Avengers. Go see Avengers the day after. Instead, go see Memphis May Fire on the 27th. Right? Avengers.
Yeah, they can wait.
Yeah, that'll be there. But Memphis May Fire will only be there on Friday. But you can catch all of that info and more at statemedia.com.
Wait for the spice to come out of the trees. Yes, wait for the trees to get down on their knees. And you wait for your knees. You climb up the hill.
Welcome to Cigar City Radio episode number 73. The song you just heard was Who Am I Feeling by Send Medicine from the album Scary Aquarius Daughter. I'm your host, Randy Ojeda, and making the magic happen, the tie-dye shirt wearing Jason Solanas.
Randy, I'll tell you who I'm feeling.
Who are you feeling?
Just myself, man. My hand's on my leg, and I'm sitting here comfortably. I'm feeling myself.
Hey, that's good, man. Body positivity, my friend. Body positivity.
Indeed. At least for my leg.
Yeah.
At least for my leg.
And thigh area.
And thigh area. And upper thigh area.
Yeah. Our guest on this episode is American singer and blues man John P. Hammond, the son of famed record producer John H. Hammond. He's been performing and touring since the early 1960s. He's worked with musicians like Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, Dr. John, Duane Allman, Tom Waits, many more, you name it. He was also the host of the documentary The Search for Robert Johnson. He did the soundtrack for the Dustin Hoffman film Little Big Man. I bet you didn't know that, Jason.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I know. Check that one out. And he's won 1 Grammy and taken home 7 Grammy nominations, all in the traditional blues category. And he was inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame. So talk about a legend. It was a pleasure to have him on the show. Big shout out to our intern Kaja for very persistently staying in touch with John Hammond's team to make sure that this interview happened. Kaja even picked John up from his hotel, brought him to the interview, and drove him back. So in many ways, this episode would not have happened without Kaja. So thank you very much, Kaja, for all your help. You are awesome. So here it is, episode 73. enough to be joined by blues legend John Hammond. Can we call you a legend?
I don't know. I don't think of myself as a legend, but
I think we think of you as a legend.
all right.
Because you've been playing blues for a long time. You've been, long career as a musician. Tell us a little bit, because we have a lot of younger listeners who might not be as hip to the blues or the style and the craft of the blues. So what is the blues to you, and where did it come from?
Well, the blues is a genre of American roots music that started to be recorded in the 1920s. It evolved from the mixture of people that came from all over the world to the United States. I think blues is a kind of a combo of music from all over, including Africa and Europe and even Native Americans. And it evolved, like I said, in the beginning of the 20th century, and then started to be recorded about in the 1920s. A lot of the great blues artists were African American players that were just so talented and so remarkable that it caught the ear and the eye of the people who made records, and there was a market for it, and it got exploited. In the beginning, it was called race records. Mm-hmm. I got turned on to blues music when I was 7 years old, 1949. My father brought me to hear an artist named Big Bill Brunzi. I was just blown away by his music, his personality. I was introduced to him after the show. He was a friend of my father's. And soon thereafter, I started to just gravitate towards blues music. And in the 1950s, when I was in my early teens, I really got hooked. Started buying records. I grew up in New York City. There were venues where artists came through and played, blues artists. There were artists like Leadbelly, Josh White, Sonny Terry, and Brownie McGee. So I got to hear it live and also on records. I bought a guitar when I was 17, and I started playing professionally when I was 19. I went as far away from home as I could get. I wound up in Los Angeles and started playing in nightclubs there. I had almost immediate success as an artist. For whatever reason, I was completely into it. Made enough money to buy a car and drove back east and auditioned at a club in New York City and got hired to play at this folk club where artists like Bob Dylan played and Joan Baez and blues artists came through town and played at this place. Roosevelt Sykes and John Lee Hooker, just to name a few, and I got the gig.
Yeah.
I was paired with Phil Oakes. Phil Oakes and I played for a week, and we were held over for another week, and we were both signed up to Vanguard Records. So I just turned 20, and I made my first record. And I was on the map.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for 56 years.
So backing up a little bit, because I'm always intrigued by kind of how the music scenes were back then. So what was like the music scene like in New York compared to, or the blues scene like in New York compared to the blues scene in Los Angeles when you drove out there?
Well, it was kind of a mixed bag. There were areas that were blues areas where it was mostly a black audience, and venues were from anything from juke joints to, nightclubs. But the folk scene kind of incorporated blues into the folk genre, and I was accepted. Wasn't easy. There was a lot of racial profiling kind of thing, like, oh, how can a white person sing blues and so forth.
Yeah.
But I didn't care. It's what I wanted to do, and
Yeah,
just went for it, and overcame a lot of obstacles and made records and traveled everywhere. This has been my life.
I have a question because you're saying overcoming obstacles. I heard you, as a kid, you had a stutter. Like,
That's right.
how did you manage to correct that and just
I
become?
never stuttered when I sang.
Yeah.
And when I got on the stage, it was like another part of me came out that I didn't question it or doubt it. I just went for it, and interesting, you should know that. But I guess I've overcome a lot of things over the years.
Yes, and also because I was hearing that you went on, you did a couple concerts with Howling Wolf. Do you
I
think
did.
those people they were mentors to you, like the people that
Absolutely.
you met along
These
the
were
way?
idols of
Yeah.
mine that I got to be on shows and tour with them, and like Muddy Waters and Howling Wolf and John Lee Hooker, Willie Dixon. But there were a lot of the older players, the actual the guys who originated the music, artists like Son House and Skip James and Bucka White and Big Boy Crudup, and these were really intense players, and Big Joe Williams and Robert Nighthawk. And I got to be on shows with all these guys, and there were folk festivals that would have blues artists as well, and a lot of these guys were still happening in the 60s, and I got to be on shows with all these phenomenal players, and it was really inspirational to me.
You think that helped develop kind of your specific sort of blues sound? Seeing these
I
guys?
guess I don't, I just went for it. I was inspired to want to play the music, and I'd listened to so many different artists. I guess I came up with my own style over the years, and I liked so much of them, and there's so many different styles of blues, and I was just sort of engrossed and immersed in it.
Yeah. I know that's one thing that I've always appreciated about your music and your records too is that you dig up these like these blues songs that not everybody, it's not the typical blues standards that people are playing. Like you're really, keeping the history of blues alive in your music. Is that something you've always strived for?
Maybe indirectly. I just like the stuff that I like and wanted to do the stuff that I liked, and I guess subconsciously wanted to have stuff that was interesting and different that not everybody just did. And I knew so many songs. I felt very comfortable doing what I like to do.
Yeah. Because I feel like in that sense, like you've introduced me and probably a whole generation of listeners to other blues artists and blues songwriters, because half the time I'm going through your records, I'm like, oh, who wrote this song and who wrote this, and going back and like going sort of into a blues wormhole, where I just keep finding new.
It's
musicians.
huge, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's unbelievable.
It's
There's so many artists and so many styles, and fortunately, everybody got to not everybody, but a lot of these great artists got to record. So there it is. You can go back and check it out. Leroy Carr and Baby Boy Warren and all these amazing players that maybe made 2 or 3 records, but there they are. You can dig them up.
Yeah.
If you go on YouTube, you can get videos of these incredible players that who knew that there was any recording of them. I mean, video recordings. It's amazing.
Is that something you do from time to time?
No, I don't. I'm completely computer illiterate. I don't. My wife is really good at it, but I just know what I know from experience, not so much from high tech.
Yeah.
Low tech. That's what I am.
Was there ever a point in your career when you felt drawn by a different genre of music?
Oh, there's lots of music I love that isn't blues necessarily. I've always liked certain jazz artists and even Indian music, ragas and talas and country music and early country bluegrass and stuff. I've been on shows with so many different artists. When I first started playing in Los Angeles, there was a club called the Ash Grove. It was fantastic. They had everything from blues to jazz to poetry to bluegrass. I got to be on shows with some phenomenal bluegrass players that were just awesome.
They tend to.
I've
be that
always
way, yeah.
admired great playing.
Yeah.
I mean, but what I do is blues. That's what I've always done.
Yeah.
But I've been drawn, as you say, to all kinds of music.
Has anybody ever requested to have you on one of their albums that's not a blues album? So somebody searched really deep for your material. Would they ever find something not blues?
No, I don't think so.
And that's
I
why
have to
they're
think back, as I've made a lot of recordings and I've recorded with a lot of artists, but not so much as a sideman. I've always, had my own way of wanting to do things, and so various artists who have recorded with me, artists like the band when they were Levon and the Hawks, Dwayne Allman when he was a studio guitar player in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, Dr. John and Michael Bloomfield, Charlie Musselwhite, Tom Waits. I've had some amazing experiences as a performer and had a chance to collaborate with some phenomenal players.
What was it like working with Tom Waits? 'Cause I know
It
it
was
the Wicked
awesome.
Grin album.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Well, I met Tom Waits in 1974. I was on some shows in Arizona and New Mexico, and he opened a show for me in Tempe, Arizona. And he was so good, I didn't want to go on. He was just unbelievable. His songs were just mesmerizing. He was a phenomenal artist, and I had to go on, so I played my show, and he came backstage and introduced himself after my set, and he said, "Man, I've been a fan of yours since I was in high school." And I couldn't believe it. But, and the way we became friends, he moved to New York for a while, and I got to hang out with him there, and everybody started recording his songs, and I mean, he became a huge star. I moved back to the West Coast, and I sort of fell out of touch with him, and I was recording in San Francisco in 1992. J.J. Cale was producing the record, and Tom came to the recording session, and he wrote a song for me, and we sort of reconnected.
You remember which song that was?
No One Can Forgive Me But My Baby. An outrageous song that my wife saw him sit down and write in about 10 minutes. I know, it was amazing. Anyway, in 1999, he asked me to record with him on an album he was doing called Mule Variations.
Yeah, it's one of his best.
And I played some harmonica on it, as this is sort of outside of my realm, but I really admired Tom to the point where I felt I could do it. And so that went really well. My wife Marla and his wife Kathleen were hanging out, and my wife Marla said, "Well, what do you think the idea of Tom producing an album on John? He could be there every night, take care of the kids, and And she said, that would be a great idea. And before you know it, it was in our laps to make something happen. And it evolved. There wasn't a lot of time. It was done in about 4 or 5 days, the whole album. And these were Tom Waits songs that I had never heard before. And I sort of just winged it and played them my way. We had a great little band to work with, Stephen Hodges and Augie Myers and Larry Taylor. Eventually we got Charlie Musselwhite to do some harmonica with it, and the record came out so good. The songs, I was just inspired, and I played them my way, blues style, and I'm really proud of it.
So it's the wives that brought this together. Is what you're
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, where things come from, you can't always predict. It just worked out really well.
Yeah. Well, it's always good when the wives get along.
Yes.
That's the first step to friendship and marriage. Your wife getting along with the person.
That's right.
That's very true.
Well, this is a question about your documentary, The Search for Robert Johnson. Yes, that's how I actually heard of you, from that movie. Yes. Did you, as a kid, because you got to walk the same streets as Robert Johnson, did you, ever romanticize, as a kid, going down to Mississippi and,
Fantasize?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. When I went to school in Ohio at a place called Antioch College, it had a work-study program. So you would be on campus for 6 months and working a job somewhere for 6 months. One of the jobs I took was near Boca Grande, Florida. And I had just started playing the guitar. And I used to hang out in Boca Grande sometimes, and I had a day off from this. I was a maintenance man on a little island. And so I met this guy named Albert McCall. He was a harmonica player. This was in the black part of the town, and I'd just play the guitar and sing, and guys would come around saying, "Oh man, look at this guy playing blues, woo. How is that possible?" But I was fearless. I didn't care. I just loved the music. So I had a sense of being down south and playing in that kind of atmosphere that I'm sure Robert Johnson played in, and so many of the great country blues players. That was my first taste. And then when I started playing professionally, I traveled everywhere, and all through the South, all through the North and Canada, everywhere. So I felt like I was part of the tradition, of the itinerant blues singer. I am. You become what you want to be sometimes.
If you work hard enough, right? No.
I guess. I'm here to tell you I've done it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm especially glad you never planned to move to New Orleans like Ray Davis and end up getting shot. So.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I'm a fortunate guy.
Yeah.
I really am.
So a little more recently, actually, you worked with G Love from G Love and the Special
G-Love.
Sauce.
Garrett Dutton is a good friend. He came to hear me play when he was not old enough to get into this club where I was playing. And he decided to wait around to see anyone that was old enough to be his parents walk in and have them bring him in.
Really?
And my wife and I walked in, and he said, "Hey, could you get me in to see the show?" And not knowing it was me. And then all of a sudden, this is what he tells me, he was inspired to want to play.
Wow.
And so I've known Garrett a long time, and he's a phenomenal player, a great guy. And he's got that, whatever that thing is, that makes you stand out.
We
he's
just
really
had
great.
him on our show.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yeah,
my.
a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Well, he's the real deal.
Yeah, he definitely is. And actually, one of the things that he told us was that his next album, he wants to go for the Blues Grammy. Is what he said. Wants to make a straight ahead blues album. You're giving
Well,
him
he
a
can
thumbs
do
up.
it. He can do it.
I think he can.
Oh, I know he can do it.
So you've known him a long time then.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have.
And seen him kind of
Since he
grow.
started out, right?
That's incredible. I didn't know that.
Well, the album that he produced for me, I wrote 5 songs. I'm not a songwriter per se, but I was inspired to do that, and he got right into it himself. And no, I mean, it was really a great experience. He's got a lot of poise, and he's got a lot of just good instincts,
Yeah. Yeah, and you said that you're not really a songwriter, and I guess in your career you've done a lot of versions of other people's songs, but
I know so many songs. It's it's all up here.
so you figure why
I never
write?
felt like I had to write songs in order to do what I love to do. So, I mean, I like to say, Ray Charles was not a songwriter. Elvis Presley wasn't a songwriter. I mean, they were just great singers and performers, and
Yeah.
I feel like my strength is in performing and doing the stuff I love to do.
So is that the part that you love the most? Is it the performance? Is it the studio?
Yeah.
Is the performance?
Well, the studio is an afterthought. That's not what I'm not in it to make records. I'm in it to perform. It's what I've done my whole life, and to me, that's the art. Being able to get up on the stage and just win it. Make a crowd just get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I think you've been the introduction to the blues for a lot of people.
Well, I'm happy if I have been.
Kaja, you look like you're itching for another question.
He literally.
With the interpretation of songs, do you take a lot of time to think about a song before you go out and perform it, or it's just something?
Yeah, well, in the sense that I want to feel comfortable doing the song. I've heard so many great songs. I have to sort of figure out how I would do it, to make it mine. Any artist, has to make the material they do their own. I'm not a machine. I'm not a tape recorder. So I'm going to do it the way I want to do it, and I don't study how to make it my own. I just have an instinctual feeling of how I want to put it across. You have to make it yours somehow.
Yeah.
So talking a little bit about, you mentioned the being kind of technology illiterate, your words,
Yeah.
So on stage, obviously, there's so many new electronics and stuff with music. So what kind of gear are you using? Are you still kind of using?
I don't plug into anything. I play acoustic. I have a SM57 for the guitar and a 58
right
for the
there.
vocal. Yeah. And so it's pretty basic.
So you're not using a bunch of pedals or anything
No
like
pedals, no electronics. It's just kind of
It's all
upfront.
John.
Yeah.
that? Well, a lot of
To me, that's the art. Photography, black and white is the art. So that's the way I like to use that analogy.
Getting as much across with as little flair as possible.
Yeah, make it be totally real, and that's what I'm into.
that's as real as it gets.
Well, when you record, that's a whole other world. Engineers know how to get certain sounds and so forth. And when I recorded with Tom Waits, there was this phenomenal engineer named Oz Fritz, and he could make the sound right. He could get those funky nuances and stuff that make a song pop.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of guitar players that you talk to, they're always on the quest for tone,
Yeah.
they're trying to find the right tone, but you're just plugging in.
When I play acoustic, that's true. When I play electric, which isn't often, but when I record, I want the funkiest sound, the smallest amp, that you can make an amp sound, really funky.
Kalamazoo. It's that big, but it sounds enormous.
Right, exactly.
That's amazing. So looking back on your career, your long like an incredible career if you think about it that way. What's the one thing that, looking back, you're most proud of? I know it's a big
hard.
question.
I got so many things that I'm really happy with that I've made some really good recordings, like you say, but I played on some shows with artists that came backstage afterwards and artists who I admire and saying, man, that was great, And, I mean, for Howling Wolf to tell me that he really loved what I did was incredible. Robert Lockwood, all these, phenomenal players who I admire, for them to, acknowledge me makes me feel really good. I mean, every time I play, it's right now, and it's important.
Yeah.
I look forward to tonight.
Yeah, so you're playing tonight at the Attic in Ybor City, right down the road. What can you tell us about the current live show and how you're doing now?
I just play what I feel like playing. I don't plan a show. There's a lot of songs I do every night that sort of get me going, but I'll play whatever I feel like.
So do you write the set list ahead of time? Or
No, I don't have a set list.
You just go out and tell the band, we're doing this one?
Tell the band?
Then there's no band?
No
It's just-
band.
It's just you?
me. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And they don't do full bands in the
Whoa.
attic.
That's even cooler.
It's him and a
that's as
I'm
cool
a
as it gets.
solo. That's what I do. And the few times I've had bands on the road have been usually when I have a record out that was recorded with a band. But lately, the last time I had a band out was after the Tom Waits record.
Wow, really? So it's you.
Yeah, it's just me.
What's the
If you can pull that off, that's something.
that is something. Like, I think that's as real as it gets. It's hard to perform on your own. I don't even like doing this podcast on my own. I get nervous when these guys aren't here. So how do you pull that together?
I don't know. I
It's
just go for it, and this is what I've done all my career. Has been just getting up on the stage and being scared out of my wits and making it happen somehow.
Do you still feel that way?
Not so much. I'm not so
I
afraid
figured
as I used to be, but I mean, it's just me. I can't rely on the bass player or the drummer or whatever. I gotta do it myself. So it means that you have to have your shit together. Excuse my French.
No, absolutely. That's like I forgot. I think it was Jimmy Fallon from the Tonight Show said that, like, they asked him if he gets nervous before he goes and does his show, and he said that he's totally nervous up until the curtains open, and then he's just doing his thing.
You have to do it. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. What you have to do.
Yeah. So what's next for John Hammond beyond this tour?
A drive back to the frozen north. We leave tomorrow. I have shows next month, and in May there's the Blues Foundation has the annual Blues Awards. They've asked me to come up there and be part of that. So in May we'll drive down to Memphis and hang out there for a few days. I have shows this summer. I'll be 76 this year. Yikes!
Hey, you made it.
So I can kind of pick and choose now. I mean, my wife and I love to travel. We have friends all over the place, and so we just pick up and go sometimes, or just hang out at home. And home is wonderful.
Does your wife travel with you when you tour?
We go everywhere.
That's
together.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I learned over the years that if you don't go together, then you can't really share it. I mean, you can talk about it, but being there together makes it real. And
That's beautiful.
it's real.
that's a really beautiful sentiment. So I wish I could take my wife with me everywhere we go.
It's hard, but if you insist on it and make it happen, it happens.
So does she help with some of the tour duties? And
Totally. I mean, like I say, I don't do computers, and she does, and so much today is using the technology of. I mean, I know how to do some things, but I mean, I can press the GPS buttons and stuff like that. But in terms of, planning stuff in advance, and everything is now online and whatever.
So she kind of is like tour manager.
Totally. And manager and
bodyguard if needed.
Best critic. Man, that sounded weird tonight.
Is she brutally honest like that?
Oh yeah.
That's the only
she's
way
great.
to be.
No, she's really great. I'm a very fortunate man.
That's awesome. All right, well, any final thoughts for our listeners? If you just some parting words of wisdom, whatever you'd like to say.
No, I just think you should follow your heart and go make it happen the way you want it to, the best you can.